Have you ever considered that a single sentence, one impulsive, unfiltered moment could cost you everything? Not just a conversation, but your reputation. Not just a mistake, but a relationship. A careless word isn't just noise, it's a weapon. And if you're not careful, it won't cut your enemies, it will cut you. This isn't an exaggeration. Your words can open doors, yes, but they can also slam them shut, burn bridges, and collapse everything you've built. If you don't learn to control what you say, you'll eventually pay the price with your opportunities, your peace, and maybe even your identity. But this video isn't just about speaking more clearly. It's about learning to speak less with intention. Because Stoicism teaches something that modern life tries to drown out. If you don't master your tongue, you don't master your life today. I'll walk you through 10 Stoic principles that will help you stop sabotaging yourself with your own voice. You'll learn why silence, when chosen wisely, can command more respect, more power, and more presence than any speech ever could. These aren't just philosophical ideas. They're real tools, battle-tested, lived, and quietly transformative. By the end, you won't just sound wiser. You'll become someone who carries themselves with precision. Not someone who constantly explains. Not someone who overreacts. But someone who speaks like a blade, rarely unsheathed, but always sharp. And I'll be honest, lesson 10 may shift the way you relate to others forever. But before we get there, let me tell you a story. One that will make this lesson hit closer than you expect. It's about a man named Lucas, someone who believed, with all his heart, that words were his power. And for a while, they were. He was quick-witted, sharp-tongued, always ready with a clever remark or sarcastic jab. In high school, that made him popular, entertaining. His words won him attention, made him stand out. He had an opinion about everything, and he delivered it confidently even when he barely understood what he was saying. And the worst part, the more he talked, the more he believed he was right. By 26, he was working at a creative agency, bright, spontaneous, funny, until one day, he WASN single quotes it happened in a high-stakes meeting. His team had been working for weeks on a sensitive campaign for a mental health client. The stakes were high, everyone was tense. The client was cautious, listening closely. And, right there in the middle of a serious presentation, Lucas cracked a joke. One of those jokes that only sound funny in your own head. A joke that made light of mental health. The room went still. No laughter, just awkward glances. The meeting ended early. The next day, he was called in. The client had pulled out. A major account gone. And the reason? That one offhand comment. Lucas was stunned. He couldn't believe a 3-second joke could erase a month of work. But it did. And what hurt most, no one defended him. Not a single team member. In fact, they looked at him like a virus, the guy who ruins everything. That night, Lucas didn't speak. No music, no TV, no phone notifications. Just silence, and the hum of regret inside his own head. He sat on the floor, still in his office clothes. No energy to move, no words to say. Just that feeling something inside him had cracked. And the worst part? He couldn't even name what it was. That night, as Lucas sat in silence with nothing but regret in his chest, he realized something deeper than work had fallen apart. His entire way of being was unraveling. For the first time, he wasn't just worried about losing his job. He was finally starting to see that the way he carried himself, his constant need to speak, to be noticed, to impress, was costing him everything. No one from his team had messaged him. Not one person called. Not even a short "Are you okay?" Just a dry message from his boss. Take some time, reflect. And then came that ache in the chest. Not sharp like rage, not loud like fear, just that hollow weight, a quiet pain. Without a name. Maybe it was shame, maybe loneliness, maybe both. He walked into the hallway, looked into the mirror, and for a split second, he didn't recognize the man looking back. He didn't see confidence anymore. He saw a problem. The guy who ruined things. The one who didn't belong. And in that moment, Lucas thought seriously about quitting, about walking away, disappearing for a while. Because when you're broken on the inside, the last thing you want is to show your face to the world. And that's when, without knowing why, he picked up a book. One his sister had left days earlier on the living room table. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't expecting insight. He wasn't even looking for help. He just wanted to kill time. But one line hit him like a slap. Think before you speak. Many times, silence is the best answer. He read it again, then again, not because it was poetic, but because it felt like Marcus was talking directly to him. Like someone from 2,000 years ago had already learned a truth Lucas was only now beginning to see. That moment was the first step. He started reading more, and he began to understand something radical. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is control. Staying quiet doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've mastered the moment. Talking just to talk. That's noise. That's ego. That's weakness dressed as confidence. Seneca once wrote, "Those who talk too much lack self-control." So Lucas began a quiet practice. He listened more. He held back his opinion when it wasn't asked for. He noticed that impulsive urge to speak, just to break the silence, and he let it pass slowly. Things around him began to shift. People looked at him differently. He wasn't loud anymore, he was clear. He wasn't reactive, he was measured. And soon, he was invited back into projects. Not because he was more talkative, but because when he did speak it mattered. Today, Lucas is not a different man. He's the same person, but now he carries something most people never learn. That a single word can build you or break you. And sometimes the greatest power isn't in what you say. It's in what you choose not to say. Before we continue, if this content is speaking to something real in you, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to unlock unique perks. Drop a comment below. What words are you ready to keep to yourself so your life can speak louder? Or simply write, "I'm a Stoic. From today on, I choose the silence that builds, not the words that sabotage me." Lesson 1. Do you really have to say that? Here's something you may not want to hear, but it could change the way you relate to the world around you. Have you ever thought about what it really means to speak without thinking? It's like walking around with a loaded gun in your pocket, but without knowing when it's going to go off, and worse where the bullet might land. If you want to learn to control your speech, you need to stop firing off words every time something stirs inside you. That's not honesty. That's emotional impulse pretending to be truth. This is the first real step toward inner peace and toward growth. Seneca said it clearly over 2,000 years ago. Solitude and silence are not enemies. They are allies in the pursuit of virtue and wisdom. And that isn't just poetic. It's a warning, because every word has weight. And speaking without control isn't power. It's a form of weakness disguised as confidence. True mastery begins when you start using silence as a tool, not as punishment. When you decide that your tongue will act only under command, not on reflex. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said something and regretted it a second later? Picture this: you're in the kitchen with your partner. You've had a long day. You're tired. You're stretched thin. She looks at the clutter and says, "You always leave everything lying around. You never help with anything." And without a second thought, without even breathing, you snap. "You know what? If it bothers you that much, do it all yourself. Let's see if that finally makes you happy." Silence. The kind that feels like the air has gone heavy. She doesn't argue. She just looks at you, then walks away. And you're left standing there, heart pounding, hands still holding the pan. That tight knot in your chest forming instantly. You already know you crossed a line. It was impulsive. It was unfair. And now, you don't just have to fix the argument. You also have to apologize for something you didn't even mean, but it's already out. And it already hurt. That, my friend, isn't control. That's being dragged by the first emotion that shows up. And Stoicism teaches us something else. You know what a true Stoic would have done? Nothing. He would have breathed. Waited. He wouldn't respond with fire, because he knows that fire burns both ways. Imagine Marcus Aurelius living today. Twitter, Instagram, comment sections full of insults. He'd be provoked hourly, baited into meaningless arguments, and yet there he'd be, in his modern-day toga, looking at the screen, breathing deeply, then closing the app, picking up his journal, and writing, "Today I was tested. I chose to remain still," because he understood real power is not in reacting. It's in choosing whether the moment deserves your words at all. And don't beat yourself up if you've reacted impulsively. It's not your fault. There's a reason behind it. Argentine psychologist Pablo Nachtigal explains, our most impulsive part, the reptilian brain, activates when we feel threatened. Even if that threat is emotional, not physical, our bodies respond as if there's a lion in front of us. That's why words can fly out like arrows. But if in that exact moment you pause, just 3 seconds, your rational brain takes the wheel, and what was about to become a pointless fight turns into a wiser, calmer conversation. All because of a few seconds. So let me ask you, are you going to keep letting your tongue run the show? Or will you start practicing the art of intentional speech, like a true Stoic? Let me give you 3 simple practices to start today. First, The moment you feel the urge to speak, pause for 3 seconds. Breathe. That tiny space between impulse and action can save you from saying something you'll regret. Second, ask yourself, is this building something or am I just venting? If it's just emotional release, wait until you're calmer before responding. Now, let's talk about the quiet power that stops those moments from happening in the first place. Sometimes all you need is a simple sentence to buy yourself time. An emergency phrase that acts as a buffer between your emotions and your mouth. Something like, "Let me think about it for a second." It sounds basic, right? But you'd be surprised how powerful it is. This simple line gives you just enough breathing room. Just enough distance from your automatic reaction to respond. Instead of explode. Because learning to control what you say, it's not only about becoming a better speaker, it's about living a better life, a quieter mind, a cleaner heart, and the strength to stop sabotaging yourself with your own voice. Every time you resist the urge to speak on impulse, you score an invisible win. And those wins, they build something unshakable: trust, composure, and strength. Think about it. What if your greatest display of intelligence was your silence? What if the smartest thing you could say was nothing at all? Listen to. Stop telling everyone your plans. Let me tell you how I went from broadcasting every new idea like it was breaking news, to staying quiet, and finally watching my life actually start to change. I used to be that person who'd announce every plan, every goal, every big idea, before I even took the first step. One time, full of excitement, I shared a goal with a co-worker. I told him I was planning to take an advanced design software course. It was intensive training, but it would allow me to apply for a better position, more responsibility, better pay, a real shot at growth. I had done my research, talked to the advisor, checked the schedule. All I needed to do was enroll. So I shared it all with him, hoping for encouragement. Maybe just as simple, "You've got this." Instead, he laughed. He looked at me and said, "You? Since when do you know anything about that? You can barely handle your email. What are you going to do with something that technical?" And just like that, it felt like slamming into a wall. I froze, embarrassed, angry, but mostly unsure. And the worst part? I believed him. I let the enrollment deadline pass. I told myself maybe he was right. Maybe it wasn't for me. But that sting, it stayed with me for weeks. And do you know what happened in the end? That same co-worker, he took the course without telling me. He finished it, applied for the role I wanted, and got the job. The job I found. The job I was ready to pursue. The job that could have been mine if I had kept my mouth shut. If I had read this quote from Marcus Aurelius in time, maybe I would have done things differently. The accomplishment is in the doing, not in the showing off. Let that sink in. The doing, not the telling. Because while you're out there talking about your plans, someone else is quietly taking the first step. Real progress doesn't make noise. It just moves. So if you're serious about learning to control what you say, start here. Stop wasting your breath on things you haven't done yet. When you keep your goals to yourself, You're not hiding. You're protecting your energy, your focus, your peace of mind. Now, this doesn't mean you have to live in total secrecy, but there's a huge difference between sharing and showing off, between expressing an intention and making it your whole personality, because every time you talk about something before doing it, your brain gets a fake reward. It tricks you into feeling like you've already made progress. And then, when it's time to actually act, you've lost the hunger. No urgency, no drive. Just a list of excuses for why it wasn't the right time. Think about it. Remember how we talked about keeping your plans to yourself? Well, let's be honest, most people don't. You probably know someone like this. Every Monday, they say, "This is a time starting the gym." They tell everyone. They even post about it online, and yet, 5 Mondays later, still on the couch, no sweat, no step forward. Or what about that friend who's been about to launch a business for years? Always coming soon, always almost ready. But somehow, nothing ever actually happens. Lots of talk, zero action. It's more common than you think. Entrepreneur and author Derek Sivers explained this perfectly. When you announce your goals, before you achieve them, you trigger a premature reward loop in your brain. It's like your mind celebrates early, as if just saying it out loud equals progress. But here's the catch. You haven't done anything yet. And that's why, often, the more you talk about your goals, the less energy you have to pursue them. Why? Because you already got your dopamine hit. You already felt that little rush of validation. But nothing has actually changed. And the worst part? Now, there's pressure and expectation without momentum. So how do you stop this cycle? Try this. Start writing your goals in a private notebook, somewhere only you can see. A space that isn't for performance, but for reminders. Reminders of why you started. Reminders of what truly matters. The world doesn't need to see them. What matters is you don't forget them. Another helpful strategy. Share your goals only with someone who will actually support you. Not someone who just claps, but someone who holds you accountable. Someone who'll ask, "Are you really doing it? Or are you just talking again?" Trust me, that one honest voice is worth more than 10 shallow compliments. And if you want to level up how you speak, start shifting your language. Instead of saying, "I'm going to do this," say, "I've already started working on it." But if you haven't started yet, better to stay quiet. Speak when there are results, not just intentions. Picture a rocket being built. In those early stages, it's all silence, calculations, preparation, no cameras, no applause. But when that rocket launches, that's when the world hears it. That's how your goals should work too. Quiet in construction, thunderous in results. Because when you build in silence, no one can stop you. But when you talk too much, anyone can copy you or sabotage you. Now tell me, have you ever shared an exciting plan with someone, only to have them shut it down, mock it, or betray your trust? If so, you're not alone. Drop your experience in the comments. You never know, your story might protect someone else from making the same mistake. Lesson 3. Those who listen understand more. We've all been there. You're opening up about something important, a personal issue, a tough decision, something that's been on your heart all day. But while you're explaining it, you notice the other person is only half listening, nodding, smiling, but not present. And the moment you pause, they jump in with, "That reminds me of when I just like that." The spotlight shifts, the connection breaks, and suddenly you feel invisible, like your words were just the prelude to their story. Here's the truth. You've probably done it too. Because most of us are so used to talking, we've forgotten how to listen. But here's the twist. Listening more, it doesn't make you invisible. It actually makes you stronger. You seem wiser, more grounded, more present, and yes, ironically, more interesting. We live in a world where everyone's trying to be right, trying to correct, trying to interrupt, but no one's truly listening. And that, my friend, gives you a massive edge. You become different. You become the person people seek out. Why? Because listening, in a world full of noise, is a superpower. If you truly want to gain control over your words, if you want to stop sabotaging yourself with offhand comments, arguments, and misunderstandings, then you must begin with this simple truth. Speak less to listen more. Spanish leadership coach Eloy Lopez put it perfectly. When someone feels heard, they respect you more, not because of what you said, but because of how you made them feel. That's the secret. Lopez says his clients rarely remember his advice. What they remember is how he looked at them, how he listened, without judgment, without interruption. That kind of presence lingers longer than any speech. And let's be real. Think back to a teacher you admired in school. Do you actually remember what they taught you word for word? Probably not. But you remember how they made you feel. Why? Because they listened. Because when you spoke, they weren't waiting to correct you. They were there to understand you. And that, my friend, is what creates lifelong impact. Let's get something straight though. Listening isn't just about staying quiet. Real listening is active. It's intentional presence. It's not about being mute. It's about being so present that the other person feels it. And that presence, it builds respect. It builds trust. It brings peace into every conversation. Because when you stop entering conversations to stand out, and instead enter to understand, everything changes. Fewer arguments, fewer misunderstandings, more clarity, more energy saved. So how can you become that kind of person? Here are 3 small but powerful habits to practice. 1. Look people in the eye. It sounds simple, maybe even obvious, but in a world of screens and distractions, direct eye contact is rare. And when you give it, you stand out immediately. If you really want to go further, put your phone away. Make it crystal clear that you're here. Fully. 2. Reflect back what they said. Use phrases like, "So what you're saying is," "It sounds like what you really need is." This shows you're not just hearing words, you're processing. You're paying attention. Imagine this. Your sister tells you she's exhausted. Work is overwhelming. She has no time for herself. Instead of jumping in with, "You should organize better," or "Try meditating," you say, "It sounds like," What's really weighing you down is the feeling that you don't have any time for yourself. That one line changes everything. Why? Because now she feels seen, heard, understood. And when people feel understood, they let their guard down. They trust you more. They open up. And in today's world, that level of listening is a gift. One almost no one gives. 3. Pause before you respond. Sometimes the other person doesn't want advice. They don't need a solution. They just needed to say it out loud. And if you jump in too soon, you miss that moment. You lose the connection. But when you pause, even just for a second, you show them, I'm not just replying, I'm thinking, I'm with you. And that is powerful. Because when you pause, you understand more. And when you understand more, you speak with more clarity. And when your words are clear, they carry weight. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more and speak less. That wasn't just a catchy quote. It was a guide for life. Because those who talk constantly, they miss the nuance. They miss the lesson. They miss the growth. But the wise, they watch, they listen, they wait. And when they finally speak, their words land like arrows, precise, intentional, unforgettable. Because when your words carry weight, your presence changes the room. And that brings us to the next truth you must learn. Lesson 4. Don't speak when you're burning inside. Now picture this. A massive barrel sealed tight, filled to the brim with gasoline, pressure rising, and right beside it, someone maybe unintentionally lights a tiny spark. No big deal, right? Except, boom, the whole thing explodes. Now, replace that barrel with your body. And that gasoline, it's everything you're holding. Inside, the stress from your day, the frustration that's been simmering, the disappointment, the fear, the suppressed anger. Now imagine someone says something, maybe just a casual comment that lands the wrong way. What do you do? Do you let the spark hit the fuel? Because if you do, it blows. Words fly out, sharp, hot, uncontrolled, and just like the explosion, there's no going back. Seneca explained this with a metaphor so vivid it feels like it was made for moments like this. He wrote, anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. Think about that. Because when you speak out of anger, frustration, exhaustion, you're not speaking from reason. You're speaking from pain. Maybe you win the argument, but you lose something more valuable, a relationship, your credibility, your peace of mind. And that, my friend, is far too high a price for not waiting 5 minutes. So, what's the solution? Recognize the moment, that split second before the explosion, that heat in your chest, your throat tightening, the voice in your head screaming, say it now. That's the moment you must choose not to speak. As Spanish educator Lico woman puts it, you are not yourself when you're upset. You are your emotion behind the wheel. That's the hard truth. You're not thinking clearly. You're not responding, you're reacting. From drama, from tension, from noise. And then what? You blow up. And later, you're left apologizing for things you didn't even mean. Again, One of Like a Woman's most viral exercises is incredibly simple, but it works when you're furious. Write down what you want to say, save it. Read it again hours later. 0.90% of the time, you'll realize it made no sense. It wasn't clarity, it was a scream. You didn't need to say it, you just needed to feel it. I've done it, and honestly, I was embarrassed when I read back what I wrote. I bet you've had one of those moments too. You're swamped, deadlines, messages, a dozen things swirling. You're locked in on an urgent report, and then your boss walks in with one more request. Your co-worker says, "Hey, this might be easier if you do it like this." And you snap. "I don't need you to save me, okay? I just want to be left alone." They walk away. You're left there, heart racing, guilt flooding in. You know they were just trying to help, but your stress turned your mouth into a weapon. So how do you avoid it? Try Like a Woman's trick. Open your notes app. Write everything, unfiltered. Let the emotions speak, but don't send it. Don't act on it. Lock it with a password if you need to. Shove it in a drawer. Then walk away. When you come back to it later, you'll see it differently. That rush will be gone, and the storm will have passed. And while you're cooling off, don't just sit there. That's the worst thing to do. Move. Leave the room. Go to the bathroom. Splash cold water on your face. Open a window. Take a walk. Put on your favorite song and dance. Yes, dance. Break the moment. Why? Because what you don't express outwardly in anger, you reclaim in clarity. And clarity, that's the real power. Because the moment you pause, you reclaim power. And sometimes, just being alone for a few minutes is enough to drop the emotional temperature and let your brain reset. But once the heat fades, here comes the most important part. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? Was it really about this moment? Or was it something deeper? Because the truth is, you're often not reacting to what's right in front of you. You're reacting to everything that's been piling up. Frustration from last week. Stress from that one conversation you never resolved. Insecurities you've been hiding for years. And if you never pause, if you never stop to reflect, you'll keep exploding in the wrong direction again and again. Remember this. Controlling your words when you're calm is easy, but controlling your tongue when you're burning inside, that's emotional mastery. That's where peace begins. That's what real growth looks like. So don't speak when you're on fire, because even if you put out the flames later, the ashes, they stay with others, sometimes for good. Lesson 5. Not everyone deserves to see your vulnerable side. Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened up, maybe too quickly, shared something deeply personal in a casual conversation, only to regret it later? It happens all the time. There are people who, without thinking, spill their whole life story on the first meeting. Family trauma, emotional wounds, fears they haven't told their closest friends. And when someone eventually uses those words against them, they say, "I never saw it coming." But from the outside, it's easy to think, well, no surprise, you told everyone. But let's be real, it's not that simple. Because when we share something vulnerable, we're not expecting betrayal. We're hoping for connection, for relief, for someone to say, "I get it. You're not alone." And that's where the pain comes from. We hand over our truth without knowing whether the other person knows how to hold it. That's exactly why you're here, because deep down, you already know not everything needs to be silenced, but everything does need to be filtered. Because silence, when it protects your peace, isn't coldness, it's wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said it best. Don't worry about what others think of you. Focus on what you think of yourself. What does that mean? It means you don't have to overshare to feel seen. You don't need to bleed in public to prove your worth. Some of your deepest battles, they're meant to be fought and won in silence. With no audience. Let me tell you how I learned that lesson the hard way. There was someone I saw often. We talked regularly, spent time together, laughed a lot. I thought I could trust them. So one afternoon, after a deep conversation, I opened up. I told them something I was deeply ashamed of. That I struggled with food anxiety. That sometimes I couldn't stop eating, even when I wasn't hungry. That it made me feel awful, guilty, out of control. And as I shared it, I felt lighter. I thought they understood. But just a few days later, at a dinner with friends, I was eating a little more than usual, nervous about something that had happened at work. And suddenly, in front of everyone, they laughed and said, "Hey, slow down. Looks like you can't stop today. Got some of that food anxiety again." I froze. It was like the whole room sucked the air out of itself. People chuckled awkwardly. I smiled, faked it. But inside, I broke. Not because of the joke itself, but because I had given them access to a piece of me they didn't know how to handle. But they didn't know how to respect it. And from that moment on, I learned. That's why I'm telling you this. Now, I don't want the same thing to happen to you. One thing that really helped me during that time was listening to Molo O'Brien, the creator of the podcast Understand Your Mind. In one of his episodes, he said something that struck me like lightning. Don't turn your vulnerability into social currency. Because sharing your wounds doesn't make you relatable if you do it without awareness. It just leaves you more exposed, more fragile, and more hurt if the wrong person gets a hold of it. So, what can you do? How do you protect your story without becoming cold or closed off? First, ask yourself before opening up, has this person shown me loyalty or just friendliness? There's a huge difference between someone being nice to you and someone actually being worthy of knowing your most painful truths. Also, before going deep, try something simple. Share a neutral piece of information, something light. Then watch. Do they keep it to themselves, or does it mysteriously travel to others? Because let's be real, if they share what belongs to others, they'll absolutely share what belongs to you. And remember this, you don't need to spill your soul in order to heal. You can process your pain on your own. Write it down, reflect, cry it out in silence, or, if needed, speak to a professional. Someone who knows how to hold space without judgment, who listens with intent, not curiosity. Not everyone deserves front row seats to your inner world, especially not those who only show up to be entertained. But let's be clear, this isn't about staying silent out of fear. Not at all. It's about knowing when to speak, who to speak to, and most importantly, why you're speaking in the first place, because protecting your process doesn't mean hiding. It means growing privately. With strength. Lesson 6. Sometimes silence commands more than words. Do you hear that? Exactly. Nothing. That's the sound of power, the sound of respect, the sound of someone who doesn't need to prove themselves with noise. Because silence, when chosen intentionally, is not emptiness, it's presence, it's strategy, it's strength. A well-placed silence is like a wall of marble, solid, impenetrable, elegant. Meanwhile, someone who talks non-stop without thinking, that's a paper wall. It folds at the first touch, all noise, no structure. Even Leonardo da Vinci understood this. Yes, beyond being a genius artist and inventor. He once said, "Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence." He knew that in a world overflowing with opinions, the one who observes quietly holds the power. It's not about being shy. It's about being so anchored in yourself that your presence doesn't require explanation. When you choose silence, you're not disappearing, you're making a statement. I'm here, I'm listening, but I won't let chaos drag me into the mud. Marcus Aurelius understood this too. He wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence, because when someone yells and you stay silent, it doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've won without even stepping into the ring." Let me paint a scene I know you'll recognize. A family dinner. The topic, vacation plans. One person wants the beach, another wants the mountains. Another doesn't want to go anywhere at all. Suddenly, voices rise, interruptions, blame, stress. But you stay calm. You breathe. You observe. You don't jump into the chaos, not because you're passive, but because you know this isn't your battlefield. And while everyone else loses control, you gain it. You stay composed. And in the end, you're the only one who didn't say something you'd regret. The only one who didn't have to walk back a comment. The only one who kept their dignity without raising your voice. Not long ago, I was listening to an interview with Jefferson Fisher, a trial lawyer who now teaches emotional discipline. And he said something that made me pause the audio, grab a pen, and write it down. He was talking about those moments when someone throws a loaded question at you, or makes a passive-aggressive comment designed to provoke you. You know the ones. Your instinct is to fire back immediately, to defend yourself like you're on trial. But Fisher said, "Wait, pause. Don't answer right away." Why? Because when you go silent even for just 3 seconds, you don't come off as uncertain. You come off as powerful, grounded, in control. And the beauty of it, the other person becomes uncomfortable in that silence. They scramble, trying to fill the void. But you stay steady. And that, my friend, commands more respect than 1,000 clever comebacks ever could. So how do you use this in real life? Try this. The next time someone comes at you with an emotional jab or a manipulative question, don't react. Stay quiet. Look them in the eye, not with aggression, but with calm resolve. That pause, it's not hesitation. It's power. In that moment, you're breaking their rhythm. You're refusing to play the game. You're saying, without words. You don't get to pull me out of my center. Jefferson Fisher calls it strategic silence. It's what he teaches in courtrooms and coaching sessions. Because impulsive replies, especially to subtle digs, often make you look rattled or defensive. But a beat of silence that radiates clarity, confidence, authority. As he puts it, sometimes the most powerful response is the silence before it. But I get it. If you're not used to silence, your body might feel tense. You'll want to do something. So here's a physical trick that Fisher recommends. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes. Sounds odd? Trust me, it works. It's a discreet release of tension that grounds you without anyone noticing. Another tool. Have a mental anchor phrase ready. Something like, I don't let anyone rush me. Say it internally when things heat up. Let it be your shield, your guide. Because this isn't about appearing calm. It's about being calm. And the best part, when you master silence, you naturally master your words. You no longer feel pressured to fill every gap with noise. You no longer chase the last word and here's the paradox. The less you say, the more your words hit. Because they come from clarity, not reaction. They land clean, without the static of defensiveness. Lesson 7. Your results matter more than your words. Variance says they're going to change. That this is the year. That now it's real. But then, nothing changes. January passes, March passes, and by July, it's the same old story, same habits, same excuses, same life. You know who really moves the world? The person who doesn't announce their transformation. The one who doesn't post about it. The one who does it quietly, who shows results before they speak a word. Because in a world obsessed with talking, the one who moves in silence becomes unforgettable. Let me tell you about someone who understood this perfectly. Her name is Madison Richardson. A professional rock climber, the kind who trains even when her hands are torn, even when her nails are broken, even when no one's watching. One day, she made a decision that would change everything. She'll never need to explain a thing. Madison Richardson understood that better than most. If she truly wanted to stand on the podium, not just compete, but when she had to change something fundamental. So, she made a bold move. She deleted Instagram. No more likes. No more DMs. No more motivational captions or performance updates. She walked away from the noise, the validation, the audience. Why? Not because she had something to prove, but because she had a goal to serve. And what happened? She didn't just return to competition. She came back stronger than ever, and she won. In a post-win interview, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. By stopping the need to show my progress, I accelerated it. I had more focus, more energy, more real motivation. That, my friend, is the power of silence. And no, you don't need to quit social media to understand this lesson. Because maybe you've done it too. Announced your big plans with fire in your eyes. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna change everything. And then nothing. No follow-through. No momentum. Just leftover words, floating like deflated balloons in a quiet room. See, talking feels good. It gives us a momentary boost, a shot of validation. But action, That's a completely different beast. And when you stop speaking just to impress, when you go quiet to focus, to build, to surprise, you earn a respect that no words could ever buy. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, who didn't need to prove himself to anyone, said it best. Stop talking about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't say you're going to be strong. Be strong. Don't say you'll change. Do it. He didn't care for speeches. He cared for substance. And just imagine if Marcus Aurelius had Instagram. He wouldn't be posting selfies of his sunrise routines, captioned #discipline mode. He'd be up before the sun, training his mind, writing in his journal, living with integrity and intention. And 1,000 years later, you'd still be quoting him, not because of what he said in public, but because of how he lived in silence. So, how can you apply this now, in your own modern way? Here are a few steps. First, swap out the phrase, "I'm going to start," for "I've already started." Because every time you say what you plan to do, your brain rewards you like you've already done it. And that steals your drive to act. If you haven't started, keep it to yourself. Let your results break the silence. Next, keep a private log. Not for likes, not for applause, just for you. Buy a small notebook or open a locked note on your phone. Every day, write, what did I do today? What did I learn? How did I grow? Because real progress isn't tracked by comments or fire emojis. It's measured by consistency over time. And finally, when you feel that itch to share something just so others will validate it, pause, breathe, ask yourself, why do I want to say this right now? If it's to impress, wait. Let your actions become impressive first. If it's to stay motivated, remember, the strongest motivation doesn't come from approval. It comes from doing. I'm not telling you to be invisible. I'm saying be undeniable. So grounded, so focused, so deeply committed to your path that you don't need to explain anything to anyone. And when people see what you've built, they'll say, I didn't see that coming. Because that, my friend, is how you earn respect. Not with promises, but with proof. And if no one's clapping for you today, don't worry. The echo of your results will be louder than 1,000 empty announcements. And when that day comes, you won't need to speak. Your life will speak for you. Because once you master silence, you'll never need to justify yourself again. Your actions will speak so clearly, no explanation will be needed. Lesson 8. Complaining won't save you. I'm so fed up with this job. This always happens to me. I never have time for anything. People never change. Life is just unfair. Sound familiar? We all know someone like this. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or someone in your family, constantly complaining about their boss, their job, their life. They hate Mondays. They hate their commute. They count the hours until vacation. And yet year after year they stay. Then there's the one always complaining about their partner. They don't get me. They're not the same anymore. They never support me. But instead of talking it out or making a decision, they keep repeating the same complaint over and over like a sad mantra. And let's not forget the people who always say, I don't have time. while scrolling TikTok for 2 hours straight or binge-watching shows they don't even enjoy. Still sound familiar? And what if just maybe that friend is you? Here's the truth that stings. Complaining is addictive. Boya Vila Seca, one of the clearest voices on emotional intelligence, said it perfectly. Complaining is the ego victim's favorite language. And he's right, because when you complain constantly, it's like turning your struggle into performance art, narrating your pain, while applauding yourself for feeling it. You think that saying it out loud is helping you release it, but really, it's reinforcing it, feeding it, giving it more oxygen than it deserves. And meanwhile, the actual problem, the thing you could fix, stays the same. Complaining without action is like walking with a rock in your shoe. And instead of stopping to take it out, you just describe the pain to anyone who listen. You can either keep talking about the discomfort, or you can stop, bend down, and finally take the rock out. Now here's the twist. Silence in the face of complaint is not weakness. It's not resignation. It's emotional intelligence. It's the decision to stop giving your pain center stage and start giving your energy to the solution. Because not everything that hurts needs to be turned into a speech, and definitely not repeated like a broken record. Sometimes, what you need isn't to vent, it's to act. And for that, my friend, you need energy. You need clarity. You need focus. So here's a powerful exercise. For one full day, count how many times you complain out loud. That's it. Don't judge yourself. Just track it. You'll be shocked. Most of us don't even realize how often we let complaints escape our mouths without thinking. That's the first step. Awareness. Then, take it further. Replace every complaint with a question. Instead of saying, "This job is killing me," ask, "What can I do to make this better?" That one shift, from victim to problem solver, changes everything. Even if you don't have the answer yet, you've moved yourself to a higher position, from passive to powerful, from helpless to proactive. Another trick. Only talk about things you're willing to act on. If you're not ready to take one step toward a solution, save your breath. That's not suppression. That's strategy. Think of your words like a budget. And every time you spend them on complaints you don't plan to fix, you're draining energy away from the things you can control. This isn't about bottling up emotions. It's about not turning negativity into your life's soundtrack. Because, let's face it, complaining won't save you. Epictetus said it clearly. It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it. And what will save you, what will transform your life, isn't louder complaining. It's quieter action. It begins when you stop broadcasting the problem and start becoming the solution. So now tell me in the comments, is there a complaint you've been carrying for too long? Something you keep repeating but never resolve? Because maybe today is the day you stop narrating and start moving. Is there a complaint you've been holding on to for too long? One you repeat over and over, even though deep down you know it leads nowhere. Write it down. Drop it here. Like a burden you no longer need to carry. Because sometimes, putting it into words is the very first step toward letting it go. Your story might help someone else, or, at the very least, it might set you a little freer. Lesson 9. Why do you say yes when everything inside you is Screaming no. Let's talk about that uncomfortable truth. You want to be kind. You want to be liked. You don't want to disappoint anyone or seem selfish. So, what do? You say yes when you really want to say no. Sound familiar? Listen closely, my friend, because here's the cost. Every time you say yes just to avoid guilt, you're saying no to your time, your peace, your energy, and most importantly, your self-respect. And while the other person might not even notice your sacrifice, you will, because somewhere inside, you'll feel that sting, the quiet betrayal of your own boundaries. Imagine this. You're at work. It's been a long, exhausting day. You've wrapped up your tasks. Your brain is fried, and all you're dreaming about is getting home, taking a hot shower, and finally unplugging. Then, just as you're grabbing your bag, a coworker walks over and says, "Hey, can you help me finish this report? I'm running behind." And before you even think, your mouth says, "Yeah, sure. Tell me what you need." Why? Because you don't want to seem rude. Because you're afraid of being judged. Because you're conditioned to please even at your own expense. And so, you stay. Another hour. Your mind somewhere else. You do the job half-heartedly. No one thanks you. You go home drained, frustrated, angry at yourself. Because deep down, you knew what you wanted. And you didn't defend it. You ever been there? Even the most successful people have. Rafael Nadal, yes. That Rafael Nadal has openly admitted that one of the hardest lessons of his career was learning to say no. He said yes to interviews, events, obligations, even when his body ached, even when his mind begged for rest. Until one day, he realized, if I don't protect my time and my mental health, I won't be able to give anything to anyone. So he started saying no calmly, respectfully, but firmly. Because no one is going to protect you unless you do it first. And that applies to you, too. Saying no doesn't make you rude. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you free. Because communication isn't just about speaking. It's about knowing when not to. It's about choosing your yes with intention. So you're not bleeding energy from all the ones you didn't mean. If your yes doesn't come from your heart, then it's not generosity. It's exhaustion wearing a polite mask. So how do you start saying no? Especially when it feels awkward? Here's your first tool. Buy time. When someone asks something of you, don't answer on autopilot. Say, "Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you." That one phrase gives you space. Space to check in with your energy, your needs, your truth. Next, practice simple, direct responses. No over-explaining. No apologies. Just clear boundaries. Try these. That doesn't work for me right now. I can't today. But thank you for asking. I have other commitments I need to honor. It sounds easy, but in the moment, it's not. So here's a fun trick. Picture Seneca, yes, the Stoic philosopher, sitting in a corporate boardroom. Someone leans over and says, "Hey, can you stay late tonight to help with these reports?" And Seneca, stone-faced, replies, "No, I need to meditate on the fleeting nature of time." Okay, maybe not exactly like that, but you get the idea. Let your no come from purpose, not panic. And remember, every time you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to something that restores you. And that, my friend, is not selfish. It's wise. So when that stoic voice inside you whispers, say no, listen. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. That mental pause, the one that says your peace matters, can save your entire day. And if saying no still feels like climbing a mountain, here's a powerful trick. Before you say yes, visualize yourself actually doing what's being asked, not just in theory in full detail. Can you see yourself showing up? Do you feel light, content, in flow? Or are you already gritting your teeth, forcing a smile? Exhausted before it even begins, your body knows the truth. So stop and listen to it. Because sometimes the discomfort of saying no lasts 5 minutes. But saying yes out of guilt, that can cost you a day, a week, or even your self-respect. Marcus Aurelius summed it up with just one line. Do what your nature requires of you, and don't be distracted by anything else. And what's anything else? It's the yes you said out of fear. It's the explanation you gave just to smooth things over. It's the self you betray, all to keep others comfortable. But here's what true control looks like. It's not just about holding your tongue. It's about finding the courage to speak your truth, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Now that the puzzle pieces are falling into place, let me share something few people have the nerve to say. There are words you never need to speak, because some words don't free you, they trap you. But silence, the right kind of silence, that can unlock everything. Lesson 10. You don't have to justify everything you do. Why didn't you reply to my message? Why weren't you at the party? Why didn't you call back if you knew it was important? Sound familiar? These questions often come with smiles, but underneath, they can feel like little trials. Like you're standing in a courtroom, forced to explain every decision, every step, as if your life requires approval stamps to be valid. Let me give you a truth that might be the most freeing thing you'll hear today. Controlling what you say also means knowing when to say nothing at all, especially when it comes to defending your choices. Because the more you feel the need to explain yourself, the more power you give away to people who aren't walking your path, who don't carry your weight, who don't know your why. And you end up exhausted, not just mentally, but emotionally, pulled away from your purpose to manage perceptions. Imagine this. You decide to leave your job. Quietly, peacefully. No drama. Just a decision that feels right deep in your gut. But the moment you share it, here come the questions. What now? What if you regret it? What if you can't find something better? And suddenly, you're on defense. Backpedaling. Justifying, giving a TED talk on why your life choices are valid. And the worst part, the more you talk, the more you invite doubt, the more room you give others to plant seeds of fear in the garden, where you had already planted clarity. Here's the truth. You don't need to explain what you already know is right, because sometimes what you need isn't more words. It's the kind of silence that speaks volumes, silence born from certainty. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Let that sink in. You don't owe anyone a slide deck on your life decisions. You don't need to rehearse your values out loud. Just live them. Live like someone who trusts themselves, even if they can't always explain it to others. And if you're wondering how to know when to stop explaining, try this. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I saying this so they'll understand, or so I'll feel accepted? If the answer is about being validated, you're handing over your peace for someone else's approval. And that's a dangerous game. Your well-being is never worth sacrificing for someone else's approval because that kind of compromise always demands a higher price. So here's something that helps. Start giving short, clear, and calm answers. Nothing defensive, nothing aggressive. Try saying something like, I made this decision for myself. It feels right. No over-explaining. No need to list the 17 reasons. Just a truthful, confident sentence. Because only you have to live with your choices, and that's more than enough. Then, build one powerful skill. Something so rare today it feels like a superpower. The art of silent confidence. Sometimes the best answer isn't a lecture. It's a small smile, a change of subject, a simple, I'd rather not get into that. Because here's the truth. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Your internal process, it's not public entertainment. And once you learn to stay quiet out of confidence, not fear, a whole new world opens up. That's when you find something most people spend their whole lives chasing. Peace. The kind of peace that whispers, my life isn't a debate. My path doesn't need to be understood. It only needs to be mine. So let me leave you with one final question. What if starting today, you lived for peace with yourself instead of being understood by others? How far could you go if you stopped using your voice to explain and started using it to build? Because the power isn't in saying more. It's in saying better. In staying silent when silence is strength. And speaking only when the words matter. Each day, you get to make that choice. To grow quietly. To move forward without fanfare. To let your actions echo louder than any speech. Because true power doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It doesn't ask for applause. It simply moves, calm, composed, and unstoppable. If you've made it this far, drop a comment below. Starting today, I choose to speak less and live better. That way, I'll know who the real Stoic warriors are, those who stayed till the end. And hey, don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an insight. And give this video a thumbs up if it helped you find clarity. Want more tools for a wiser, quieter, stronger life? Check out the playlist on your screen. It's filled with stories, lessons, and perspectives to help you live with purpose from the inside out. Until next time, take care, stay grounded, and keep embracing your inner Stoic.